Hi and welcome to Stefan Livera Podcast, a show about Bitcoin. Today, Gleb Naumenko rejoins me on the show. Now, Gleb and Antoine have been busy doing Bitcoin development and also creating this new venture, The Label, to do Bitcoin development and consulting. So we talk about that, as well as a range of things around protocol development, cross-layer considerations, things like considering Bitcoin and Lightning, the interaction between them, and what kind of attacks are possible, and what sort of mitigations, and also some of how Bitcoin can interact with other layers, such as sidechains or with Lightning, obviously. This show brought to you by Swan Bitcoin, and new from Swan is their private client services division, built for the Bitcoin purchasing needs of companies and high net worth individuals around the globe. Last August, MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor kicked off the trend of companies buying Bitcoin for their balance sheets. A flood of high-profile investors and companies have joined him. Names like Paul Tudor Jones, BlackRock, Square, and Tesla. If you are thinking of buying between $1 and $100 million worth of Bitcoin over the next year, email Swan's CEO personally, Corey at swanbitcoin.com, Cory at swanbitcoin.com. He will personally make sure that you get onboarded faster than any other service in Bitcoin. The Swan team takes the time to answer all of your questions about Bitcoin and to help you develop your strategy for allocating into the best risk-reward investment in history. An opportunity like this to build and preserve legacy-impacting wealth for your family or company will not likely be seen again in our lifetimes. If you want to get started immediately, visit swanbitcoin.com/private and fill out the form, or email Corey at swanbitcoin.com. Lend at HODL HODL, non-custodial Bitcoin-backed lending platform that allows you to lend and borrow globally and anonymously. Don't have your money laying around, lend them and earn attractive returns. HODL HODL's lending allows you to earn 25% APR on average, which is one of the highest returns on the market. Also, there is no need to sell your Bitcoins even if you are short of funds. This is a way to get some fiat stablecoin liquidity without the need to trust your money to anyone on Lend at HODL HODL. Your BTC collateral always remains locked in escrow. Lend at HODL HODL is a Bitcoin DeFi, allowing peer-to-peer lending and borrowing directly between its users. With HODL HODL's Lend platform, you set your own terms and put up offers depending on how long you want to borrow or lend and what interest you are looking to earn. Go check it out, lend.hodlhodl.com. Compass is an online marketplace which makes it easier for everyone to mine Bitcoin and enhance the Bitcoin network's security. The anti-cloud mining option, Compass helps you buy your own ASIC and secure hosting at great facilities around the world. For years, we have all heard that mining is only profitable if you're investing tons of money, but now, with Compass, everyone is able to tap into economies of scale and access reasonably priced hardware and cheap industrial power rates. And if you're unsure about how to get started with mining Bitcoin, Compass offers hardware and hosting bundles, which eliminates the need for advanced technical knowledge and allows you to get started mining Bitcoin with hardware you own. Visit them at minewithcompass.com and start mining Bitcoin today. Now onto the show with Gleb. Gleb, welcome back to the show.
Hi, it's good to be back.
So Gleb, you've been up pretty busy, hey? You've started up a new Bitcoin development venture and you're up to a few different things. Tell us what you've been working on lately.
Yeah, the last year was I think it's been maybe half a year or more since I came last time. I've been mostly working on actual Lightning and related stuff, like research wise, breaking Lightning and fixing some existing issues. And yeah, you can find my work on my Twitter, and that was pretty exciting because Lightning has so much new opportunities. To explore stuff like unsolved problems. Well, for Bitcoin, it's also true, but Bitcoin is a bit more mature. So for Lightning, it's even crazier. Apart from that, yeah, we can talk about that separately. Apart of that, we're starting this new thing with Antoine. It's called The Label. It's gonna be a a really small team. We're thinking like 4 people at most to be like very efficient. And we have these 2 directions. One is keep working on Bitcoin, sometimes working separately as we do all the time, sometimes having some joint projects. Like most of my research projects on Lightning was together with Anton because he has more experience there on how it actually works. I have some new high level ideas which nobody seems to be ever discussed, but was busy to use them. And the second part would be consulting businesses or hodlers or like whoever needs help with the advanced Bitcoin features. Like let's say, like we all know that's quite problematic sometimes when they don't integrate Segwit or Lightning lately. There is a lot of complaints about that, so people are waiting. I think this venture it could be an answer to that, like how to facilitate that process, how to stop exchanges from be hacked, how to help users to use more privacy features, while not just facilitating them from the core side, but also from the wallet side, for example, or some.
Yeah, so helping that exchange implement some kind of feature, you mean things like
Yeah,
that?
right. Also, there is like this new protocols coming up. Like I saw just this morning some new state chains implementation which would facilitate Lightning faster, and yeah, just building helping those projects building their protocols more secure is also another direction we're exploring.
I see. And because with many of these, it can be quite complicated, the different rabbit holes that you go down in terms of, are there ways that someone can cheat the other party, or some way that it's insecure, or some way that you can try to mitigate or change the level of trust required, especially in some of these ones where you are reliant on other people. And I think this is something you probably are really known for talking about, is some of the stuff that kind of happens across layers, right? So things like some lightning that requires you to be able to watch what's happening on the blockchain and make sure you respond in time, and get your response in, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's very difficult to make this correct from the first attempt before getting hacked. So, and there are two aspects to it. One is like theoretically how to build the protocol, and that's what I cover. And then the second is how to actually implement it properly, like without some implementation bugs. And that's where Antoine is mostly known for. He's like published like 10 CVs which break Lightning over the last year. Some of them are probably not known yet. So, so we're having this expertise trying to cover most of the stuff. If we get to invite somebody else, if this thing like works out super well and there is a lot of demand, we're also thinking of onboarding probably a cryptographer. Like there are a couple names who would cover that part, and somebody who knows hardware. So that's my intuition. So that would match our team and provide like coverage on any single question possibly people can be interested in.
Cool. So, what's the setup here? Is it essentially like a kind of cypherpunk development organization, or what's the structure here?
It's like super flat. We're not planning to hire many people and manage anybody. Like we might find somebody like help with hiring. For example, let's say there is an exchange which wants to integrate Lightning. We might help them to find developers and then help those developers, but we're not gonna like manage them. It is pretty like dictatorship based. Like yesterday there was a like Russian speaking outlet talking to me about this, and they asked who gonna decide who is joining this venture. And yeah, it's just two of us gonna decide. But we are also very happy to help somebody else to set up something similar and share our experience.
I see.
Yeah, the big part is, so as I said, we want to be as efficient as possible, meaning yeah, there is no management, no bureaucracy, just by default we're independent, trying to get different funding from different sources. Sometimes when it makes sense we collaborate, like if somebody needs more attention than one person can provide, we can work together or we consult with each other. Yeah, as I said, the experience, like our background is pretty complementary, so that's the goal. Yeah, just having a small team of independent people collaborating when they need to.
Cool. So, is this organization, I understand it is going to be remote only. Is it going to be like Bitcoin only in terms of funding and stuff, or you have fiat options, or what's the plan there?
Well, there are two parts to funding, and I think that's what's pretty different from other similar projects in the space. That first we're gonna keep accepting grants for open source like Bitcoin Core or Lightning development, like as we do now. Like me from BitMEX, and Antoine got funding from John Pfeffer, and now you'll see some new announcement next week about him. Second part to the open source funding, I think we would like to try to facilitate some per project funding where somebody says, okay, I want this particular problem to get fixed. Like for example, this channel jamming on Lightning, there is our idea, then there is used came up with something different, how to fix channel jamming in Lightning, and we would like to see somebody like showing up and saying, I want to sponsor this. Like, guys, here's your, like, I don't know, $30K, and please, can you try to focus on this, like, on the next month? So that's not there yet. It's a rare thing. It only happened, I think, with Chris Belcher working on, what is it, CoinJoin,
CoinSwap.
CoinSwap project. So yeah, so seeing more of that would be cool, and then we can focus our joint efforts on that. And the second component to our funding is consultant fees, which would be, yeah, just well, we're like super Bitcoin bullish, and I'm pretty sure we'll keep stacking Bitcoin or not. I don't know what Antoine is doing. We don't discuss this thing, but we're probably gonna provide discounts for Bitcoin for people who wanna pay in Bitcoin. But yeah, whatever people can do. I know there are, like, some of American exchanges are like regulated companies, and they probably cannot make those payments. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, gotcha. It's interesting. Hey, a lot of people are seemingly seeing issues around getting normal fiat banking, right? So I remember John Newbery mentioned this also when he was trying to set up Brink, that he was finding these kinds of issues. So obviously, the Bitcoin option is the ideal solution, but obviously not feasible for everyone. So let's talk a little bit about what you are hoping to focus on or what you're interested in. I think you are mostly known in the space around peer-to-peer aspects of Bitcoin, correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. Although, like with Lightning, my experience over the last year was wider, and I was thinking how, like, yeah, these attacks where Bitcoin and Lightning work together, and you try to break a bridge between them, or somehow affect one thing to steal money from another thing. So I'm trying to expand it to. So now I'm referring to this as high level problems, like those problems you draw on paper, like make some, I don't know, Python tests, like very high level, where there is no notion of Bitcoin whatsoever. There are just nodes which send something or do something. Like for example, there is this cool, like, direction I'm thinking of lately, of doing sidechains, like thing, like we all know Liquid, but what if you change a federation with something else? So that's also a high level problem, like how to make a new consensus for a sidechain. There is, like, a bunch of different ideas around that, and actually one of my first, like, consulting contracts I got just before announcing it was focused on this thing. I think it's pretty cool, and we'll see more of those in the next year, like new kinds of sidechains. So yeah, those high level ideas, not just peer to peer, but of course I still enjoy working on peer to peer stuff.
Of course, yeah. I wasn't saying you only do peer to peer. And so, in terms of the cross-layer stuff, I guess let's go a little bit further into some of those and maybe chat a bit more in detail about how some of those things are operating and how to think about some of those things. So maybe, I guess, if we started with like a more example that people might know about, right? So I think you were talking about the interaction between Bitcoin and Lightning, and so this idea of the time dilation attack. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay. So before, since like 2013 or something, the Eclipse attack was known against Bitcoin. There was no Lightning at that point. It's when you eclipse a node, you occupy all of its connections. So a Bitcoin node makes 8 connections to the network. If an attacker controls all 8 of them, and that's difficult, but under some conditions it's possible. So if they do that, they can do a lot of bad stuff. They can double spend the victim, because they control of the chain of the victim. So they can feed you the fake blockchain or pretend that there is no blocks or something. So they can double spend you. They can mess up with your mining. For example, you're a miner or you're trying to submit a block to the network, but they just delay your block for 30 seconds so that some other miners can be faster than you now, and they can obviously spy on you because they see all the messages you send and receive. So that's what we knew before. With Lightning, it turns out that and the defenses against Eclipse were always focused on these aspects. Like, for example, for double spans, an attacker will have to produce a new chain. That's why there will be, like, they cannot get a lot of hash rate at once. That means that the blocks will be slower, but Bitcoin Core has protections from that. Like, if blocks like too slow, the node starts to search for new peers, and that's how they can break from Eclipse. So we came up with this idea that for Lightning, it's very important to act on time, because if your counterparty, if your like channel counterparty tries to settle some previous state, like for example, I paid you $10, but then I try to settle on chain the states previously to that when I didn't pay. You're supposed to react. You're supposed to go on chain and send a punishment transaction, which would give you actually your money. So you're supposed to watch the chain for those activities. But if you're eclipsed, that's the same problem. You just don't see it. But what if instead of eclipsing, an attacker just feeds you blocks slower? So normally you get blocks on average every 10 minutes. If an attacker just sends you blocks every 15 minutes, it's very difficult to detect, because statistically, I think 7 blocks a day are longer than 30 minutes. So it's very difficult to say that something's wrong going on if an attacker is good enough, if they just been a bit slower, like 5 minutes slower per block. But at the same time, after 10 blocks, you're like 1 hour lagging. And if you didn't submit this punishment transaction during that 1 hour, your funds are stolen, because you can punish during a certain time. So if they force you to be late, then your funds are gone. And we explored how this is possible and which actions Bitcoin Core and Lightning should do to prevent this kind of things.
Yeah, it's really fascinating when you think about how that works. And I guess there may be different ways to, like, people could try to defend or think about how they stop that attack. Maybe they have multiple ways of checking the blockchain and so on. But I guess, firstly, how feasible is that kind of attack? Like, would it require somebody to, I don't know, maybe an example would be if you had like a malicious version of Bitcoin Core that you installed and it had the wrong peers, the wrong peer data, and you only were calling out to basically the evil peers, so they're the ones feeding you the bad blocks. Is that like one way it would work, or how likely and how would that kind of thing happen, that you got into that scenario where all 8 of your connections were bad ones?
Yeah, sure. In Bitcoin, that's like natively in Bitcoin, that's quite difficult now, because we put a lot of effort into not allowing this. My SMAP project, I think we discussed last time, of diversifying peers across different internet providers, just makes that very difficult against normal Bitcoin, unless your internet provider itself is malicious. If you're like connected to one internet provider and they mess up with you, like, yeah, you have no hope, basically. Well, you can be a bit more smart and just ring the bell, like have an alarm where something goes wrong. But that's as much as you can do. With Lightning, the big problem, and I think what makes it really feasible, is that Lightning often uses light clients. Light clients are those small Bitcoin nodes for mobile devices, which don't store the entire blockchain and don't even download entire blocks. They just download block headers. And then if they see that there is some protocol which helps them to realize that some block contains their transactions. So if they see that the block contains their transaction, they ask for a full block to see the transaction and to verify it. So the problem with that, there is very few nodes which support light clients protocols, because it's a bit more advanced than normal Bitcoin Core, what we do in the peer-to-peer network. And it's not enabled by default. That's why there is not so many nodes on the network which do that. Like, I think on the 100 or a couple hundreds, like the serving nodes, there is a lot of clients, a lot of mobile clients doing that. I think 10,000 or more, but only several hundred of full nodes like serving them. And just yesterday on Twitter, somebody told that his node with that feature enabled, like the server side, was spending 1 terabyte per month on serving light clients, while normal node spends like 30 times more or less. So it means that like a lot of clients were connected to just one person, and if that person was malicious, they can do everything. Light clients also try to do many connections, but if there is little choice, there is no help. An attacker can spawn like 1,000 nodes tomorrow, and then it's very likely that they will eclipse some of their victims.
Yeah, tricky. Hey, it kind of reminds me of how people talk about the whole the surveillance Electrum servers, right? And the idea is that the surveillance companies have an incentive to run the surveillance Electrum server to try and figure out everyone's data. And I guess maybe that's a similar dynamic here, where
Right.
if you're trying to surveil,
it is very similar.
yeah, it's like you could be the surveillance. Yeah, go on.
Actually, Eclair like is one of the most popular Lightning implementations with their Phoenix wallet. I think they use Electrum or Electrum protocol. They might be using like dedicated servers, like not connecting to random people in the network, but use their own, which makes it a bit better. But still, yes. So it is very relevant. You're right.
Yeah. So I guess even in that example with Phoenix, I think you can set, for example, your own Electrum server, but I think it does just. I mean, I don't know if they maybe if they've coded in their own list of quote unquote good Electrum servers. Maybe that's something there. But yeah, you're right. Certainly that there will be a lot of people coming in who will just use a quote unquote easy Lightning wallet where it's all set up and all good to go for them. And that means, yeah, it might mean Phoenix or it might mean Blue Wallet, the custodial Lightning version of it, and not the non-custodial Lightning version. So, yeah, certainly an interesting aspect. So, how do you kind of see that ecosystem building out?
We certainly need to think about it more. It's a shame we don't have. Well, I know the coronavirus thing, but it would be so helpful to have a core dev meeting at this point where we can talk about priorities for future, because I think that's worth discussing. Like I think light clients might need much more attention. I just yesterday there is a hackathon in where I'm from. It's not Bitcoin. It's like broader, but I'm thinking of hacking a solution for much faster light clients now and more secure based on zero knowledge. So basically, what you do is you can verify that you're on the valid blockchain, and the server feeds you the valid chain, but in a very compressed way. You don't have to download entire blocks because like there are issues with even with headers. There are problems with syncing up. So I think like part of my attention next year will be on light lines, not just making them better, but just going and reviewing that they do everything correct. Because last time I looked at Neutrino, I think it's a like BTCD light client. I think the like address management is pretty bad, meaning that the database of other nodes in the network they store, it's easy to trick, I think, or there were some other issues. Well, just going and looking at what are the current projects and trying to help them. I think that will be one of my priorities next year.
I'm also curious as well. So you mentioned earlier around the Lightning channel jamming attack and how you had a different approach to Yost Yaha's approach. Can you maybe start with just an overview? What is the channel jamming attack, and then tell us a little bit about how you were thinking on mitigating it?
Yeah, so since the Lightning Network is permissionless and also anonymous, I can send a payment to myself, let's say through 5 hops. And then on the receiving side, let's say I pretend that I went offline. So the while the nodes which facilitated this payment, like the routing nodes in between, cannot fail this immediately because they cannot assume that everybody is very responsive, so they cannot fail immediately. So they have to hold on their coins which were used for this transfer, because like while you're out and you freeze the coins from one side, like you move them from one side to another, but you keep them in flight. So that's way to basically paralyze part of the route. You just like on the receiving side you pretend you're offline or you don't respond.
Yeah. So
If they implement if they implement and then they cannot charge fees for that until the payment is passed, because currently in the Lightning we charge fees only for successful payments. It cannot trivially be solved with just failing payments in 10 seconds, let's say, for routing nodes, because an attacker can do the same thing in 10 seconds. And the one of the crappiest part about it is that, let's say an attacker can dedicate 1 Bitcoin to this attack effectively, because they can use up to 20 hops in the network. That means that like collectively with 1 Bitcoin they can jam 20 Bitcoins, because like 1 Bitcoin on each hop. And that's like assuming they have enough effort, they can paralyze the network. Some routing nodes can paralyze other routing nodes to take all the fees, for example. So that's clearly a problem, and it's very real. Like Used thinks it's the most important problem with Lightning, and we need to take immediate action to it, I think. Not that many people look at it at this point, unfortunately. So Used's idea is based on previous discussion on let's take fees even for failed payments. Like when you just start a route, you just pay a small fee so that an attacker cannot do this all the time and too often. That's a bit problematic because honest users will have to pay like zero fee, and now an attacker can be a routing node which fails the payments on purpose just to collect fees. So let's say an attacker controls two routing nodes in a row. On the second node, they fail the payment, but the first node then will take the fee from the sender, and that's a way to steal funds from honest clients. There might be some solutions in the updated versions of this proposal to this particular problem, but generally, I think I'm not sure this is an ideal solution. Our alternative is to use zero knowledge proofs. So we have this idea of some kind of reputation system where reputation is based on the UTXO. So when you send a payment, you prove to the routing nodes that you own some UTXO in the network. And then if you do this second time and third time, they see, oh, this guy sends a payment based on the same UTXO ownership. Like, why does he send payments every second? Currently, it's not possible to tell that the sender is the same because in routing, routing nodes only aware of the previous hop and the next hop. That's done for privacy. But now we can attach this blinded UTXO fingerprint to every payment. So zero knowledge proofs are needed so that we don't commit to a particular UTXO, because then you can associate payments easily. You can tell, like,
Right, that Gleb owns this piece of Bitcoin, this UTXO, right?
yeah, something like that. So we need to blind it somehow, and there is this idea of committing to some UTXO from a set without telling which one, and yeah, how to use these proofs to solve this problem. And then, like, let's say you show this proof, you get credit for 100 payments or something, and then if you want to do more than 100 payments a day, sorry, but you need another proof, or like something like that. Like you need another UTXO, or if your reputation is good and you made good payments yesterday and they all were successful, we will increase your reputation based on this UTXO. So that's the idea. The problem is that zero knowledge proofs are pretty experimental, and we're still not sure if we want to put them in the kind of core protocols of the Lightning Network. I think it's totally possible that we'll have these alternatives. If you want to route, you can pay fees up front, or you can use a zero knowledge proof. I think that could be cool.
Gotcha. So in that example, what about people who are genuinely doing lots of payments? I mean, an example might be someone using, Sphinx app to stream payments to, pay for every few seconds of podcasts they listen to, or I don't know, maybe some of the Lightning gaming people. I wonder, does that break somebody else's use case?
We should think about use cases more, because so far we were more designing protocols for general payment thing. Like, let's say, I don't know, you pay for beer 5 times during an hour, and then you go rest you go to sleep or something. But so I think, well, as long as your payments are successful,
Right.
everything's good. Like you don't waste your reputation on the successful payments. You just
Gotcha.
get more reputation. So it should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the zero knowledge side, again, I'm not an expert at all on this, but from what I understand, they often have more computational load, or there's more kind of other trade offs in other ways. Like, would that work with, say, mobile Lightning nodes and things like that? Or would that just be still within the tolerable or reasonable ranges there?
Yeah, so that's definitely what we should consider when we implement these protocols. Fortunately, some of the zero knowledge constructions are fast and small, while they need a trusted setup, which would be not acceptable for Bitcoin core layer, of course. But in this case, I think it's pretty fine, because in this case there is only one prover and one verifier, unless ledger system based on zero knowledge where verifiers is everybody. So if you join late, you cannot be confident in the trusted ceremony. Here, when there is only one prover and one verifier, it's totally fine to use any construction where just they too can contribute to the trusted setup. So that's why
I see. Yeah.
we can use almost any zero knowledge protocol here, and the most efficient.
Yeah. And with the whole idea of having Right. And with the whole idea of having a reputation in the Lightning Network, and people talk about things like, hey, having a web of trust idea, I, I see some people try to push back there because they worry that that might create a Lightning Network where everybody is public and doxed, and they want it to be that, let's say, the everyman, the retail individual can afford to run his or her own Lightning node on commodity hardware and do it in an anonymous way, right? So I guess that's also one of the other considerations when you start to bring in things that look like a some form of reputation system.
I think that's a pretty cool. I'm pretty sure hubs will be public and doxed anyway, like big actors in the middle of the network with like hundreds of channels. But for end users, for like leaves of the network, I think that's a good idea. I think we should keep exploring it.
Yeah, I'm curious then, in that kind of, let's say we have that kind of world where there are a bunch of big lightning hubs and they've got all the big channels, and then you've got all these more, whatever you want to call it, sovereign individual lightning hubs out there. Do you think it would be like maybe you could route through the sovereign individuals and maybe you get a little bit more privacy that way, but maybe you have to pay a little bit more? Do you think it would work that way, or how do you think it might look?
Yeah, totally. Will definitely. Well, there is a little disadvantage to that. Generally, well, I think that's totally feasible. I think paying a bit more for security, and that's not like that's not even just about privacy. There is, in my head, this idea you just explained comes up again and again. For example, because channels have different configurations, like the safety, like for how long you can punish a counterparty, for example, like if you can punish only up to an hour, it's not safe to be offline for more than an hour. Sometimes you want to have this configuration for a day. That meaning that channels have different safety and security parameters. And I totally see that more safer channels will have higher fees. There are little disadvantages to this way forward because if we have like very diverse policies, it will be easier to probe channels. Like channel probing is another research topic, like which will be probably still not solved for a bit from now. Just infer the balances, so it's just a bit easier to infer the balances when channels have different properties.
Back to the show in a moment. Unchained Capital are building Bitcoin native financial services using multi signature. If you want to secure your keys using multi signature, that might mean using two different hardware wallets separated into different locations. They offer this as a service, and they will be the third key in your setup, so you still hold two keys. There is no setup or storage fees if you build it on your own. On the other hand, if you want the white glove treatment, their team will teach you about multi-signature. They'll ship you some hardware wallets, they'll answer your questions and deposit $1,000 of Bitcoin. So that's normally $1,500, but you get $50 off by using the code Livera. Unchained also offer an OTC desk, and they are great for self-directed Bitcoin retirement accounts. They also offer business accounts for those of you looking to go onto a business Bitcoin standard. So go and check them out, unchained-capital.com. CipherSafe.io are producing metal backup seed products like the Cipher Wheel. They've got a product specifically helping you with recovery. It's called the Bitcoin Recovery Tag. This is an extra stainless steel tag with information about the original wallet, gap limit, derivation types, scripts used, and each of the major hardware wallets have their own type of recovery tag specifying for that hardware wallet type. So you attach this to your seed word backup with a stainless steel cable, and there's a website link for recovery to help you or your heirs with recovering those coins on Electrum. So it really adds that value of helping you recover in practice. Bitcoin Recovery Tag works with any seed word backup device, including Cipher Wheel and CryptoKeys, Billfodl, CryptoTag, and so on. Go and buy yours at CipherSafe.io and use the code Livera for a discount. CoinKite are the creators of the Cold Card, one of the most recommended hardware wallets by Bitcoiners. I think it's the best in the market with features like the ability to use it air-gapped. You can literally never plug it to a computer. You can plug it to the wall or to a phone power bank or use a cold power instead. You can initialize it and then shuttle that wallet over to popular wallets like Spectre Desktop, Electrum, or Blue Wallet to do air-gapped transactions. I've long been a fan of this wallet. It offers very high security at such a relatively low price point. It is PSBT native, and it also works great as part of a multi-signature quorum also. It's got so many features that you will love. Go and get yours at coinkite.com and use the code Livera for a discount. Back to the show. I think I've heard Antoine talk about this idea of trying to infer based on the CLTV delta. So that's check lock time verify, and that's like one of the, I guess, the parameters that sets how long you are going to have to wait. And so I guess the idea there is that people who are trying to surveil the Lightning Network might try to look for those differences in the CLTV and then try to figure out based on that to try and narrow it down and try to de-anonymize participants on the Lightning Network, right?
Yeah, that's it, definitely. But that's like the only disadvantage of these different policies I see. Otherwise, I see that's a pretty cool future. So we'll see where we get.
Of course, yeah. And so one other thing, so as I understand, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but as I understand, Yost's approach with mission control on this whole channel jamming attack, and then the mission control approach is to try to restrict the number of in-flight HTLCs, that's hash time lock contracts. So, what's your view on doing that kind of approach where you have your own, the node might have its own internal view of other parties on the network and then start saying, "Oh, this guy's legit. I hear I'm okay to take an HTLC from here." Like, how does that work for you or in your mind?
So I would admit I'm a bit behind of what you suggests. I didn't have the time to read the latest thing.
Gotcha.
Sounds like yes, like something along the same thinking we have with Antoine. So we probably should somehow merge perhaps ideas at some point, or at least learn from each other.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh well, hey, I might not have summarized that correctly either, but I think just from what I've seen and read and heard and things like that, that's one example of kind of things people are talking about. But I guess ultimately, what we're getting to here, the risk here is that people can have their channels griefed and be stopped out for some time. And in some cases, it doesn't mean they necessarily lose money in the channel. They still get it back, but they just have to wait for that timeout for that time lock to release. Correct?
Well, you can the attacker can paralyze the network, and if you're talking about general jamming or like
Gotcha.
griefing, which is
So this would be like at the overall level, and then maybe for you at an individual level, it just means you wouldn't be able to route payments at that time, which obviously would be a a huge pain. But then I guess you would still get at least most of your money back if you had to close out the channel.
yeah, no, you'll just if, as a routing node you will lose routing fees. As a honest user of the network, you will not be able to pay through it. But the problem is this attack is essentially free now. An attacker has just to lock some bitcoins but never spend them. So that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I see. And I know, well, I know Antoine is very focused on privacy, and I think potentially you are also. Have you looked at any of these other ideas around things like there was a paper recently about cross-layer de-anonymization in terms of Bitcoin and Lightning, and so the idea was, if you combined a chain analysis, chain surveillance approach alongside a Lightning surveillance approach, and you were to look at channel ID in the Lightning gossip data, and then try to figure out who holds what UTXOs and things like that. Is that something you're also thinking about?
Yeah, definitely. I'm noticing that there is enough people excited about UTXO. What they call it? Like when you mark some UTXO illegal,
Like tainting, so to speak.
yeah, tainting. Like this thing. Like I think there is enough research going in that direction, and it's pretty cool. It's getting
I see.
like merged with Lightning. But I'm trying to focus on the actually on the peer-to-peer side, where you look at the Bitcoin gossip, you look at the Lightning gossip, for example, or you look at where they located, some delays, some like you send a transaction and see if they propagate it or not. So I'm just putting my attention more in the place where nobody else looking. But that's also cool. Like what they're doing, we definitely like at the end, attacker will use all the methods they can afford and they can find. So it's definitely good to keep in mind alternative vectors.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like obviously Lightning is still very, very early, but it does seem to be growing, and so it's one of those things where I guess maybe it hasn't been worth the while maybe yet for any of the big players to really go hard on surveillance of it. Although I have seen I think there was a US government contract that went out for, I think it was Chainalysis or one of the other surveillance firms on basically how to surveil the Lightning Network. So I guess these things are starting. So I guess these are things to think about also.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of I don't even know. Like those companies are probably, well, they work with American government, which is largely uh, not qualified to judge. Of course, there is like, what is it, FBI or something, which might, as we know from the, I think, Snowden's documents, that they were interested, like Secret Services were interested in Bitcoin. But I think all this chain analysis stuff is like they work directly with the state governments, which have no clue. So they know Bitcoin, but they don't know Lightning. That's why Chainalysis is not probably even thinking about Lightning yet. At the same time, I as far as I know, they're pretty like not qualified. So what they can do is they can go to some big exchange and ask them for a list of their users and wallets. So that's what they can do, and then try to link those UTXOs like couple hops away from an exchange. But like I'm pretty sure that they have no idea how to do peer-to-peer layer stuff yet. At least that's what I know from like 2 years ago when I talked to some of their people.
I see, yeah. The hypothetical sovereign private individual who, let's say they bought coins non-KYC, maybe they use CoinJoin to fund the Lightning node, maybe they use some combo, maybe they do Tor only and private channels. I guess that kind of person who really wants to be private, I guess they can still have some reasonable level of privacy, but I suppose it might be a little bit harder for them to route if they've only got private channels and things like that, right?
Yes, that's pretty much the case, I think.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, and also your website mentions a little bit around transaction relay jamming. Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of it and how that works?
Just a bit. Like I'm pretty excited. Like the whole like DeFi thing, we might have different opinions on it. I'm pretty sure it would be cool if Bitcoin facilitated or was able to facilitate all these financial markets. Like for example, I have one Bitcoin, but I want to invest in gold for a bit. So I find somebody who is who's willing to join a bet with me. Like let's say I'm betting on a gold price of, I don't know, $100 or one Bitcoin per like 100 grams of gold or something. And they bet on like less than 100 grams, and in a month we settle. That super simple contract would allow to facilitate like and just draw a lot of attention from traditional financial markets here, because it would be much cheaper than what they do. It would be non-custodial, it would be pretty private. And yeah, so I think those use cases would make Bitcoin stronger, uh, because this like latest criticism of Taleb or whatever you call him.
Yeah.
I think, well, I mean, he obviously like betrayed us, but but I think it is fair at some like to some degree, and it would be cooler if Bitcoin had like this kind of exposure to more stability, and maybe not through buying ice cream for Bitcoin, but perhaps through facilitating the financial markets. So the same stuff. Ethereum is very popular now. I think DLC would be able to facilitate some of those use cases, but in a much better way, without like paying $200 in fees, because it can be on Lightning. It can be almost free with the like good Oracle market, where you don't like trust some like chain link for providing data, but like there is a like big actors with reputation which also don't see the deal, so they cannot even like they cannot influence much. And yeah, I'm just seeing DLC is a really good way to bring all that stuff to Bitcoin.
Right. So you're bullish on Lightning DLCs then?
Yeah, pretty much. I wish I had more time on joining the actual spec building, but I can only like do as much.
Of course, yeah.
Like 24 hours. Yeah.
Of course, only 24 hours in the day. So, okay, so I guess we've spoken a little bit about Lightning and some of the the cross layer aspects there. What about some of the other components of Bitcoin scaling? I mean, you were chatting a little bit earlier as well about side chains and other ways of interacting with the Bitcoin blockchain. What are some of the things you're looking at these days?
So just yesterday in the Sydney, what is it, Bitcoin meetup Telegram group, AJ posted a way to scale Lightning to billions of people by making Lightning banks. I think we need soft forks for that. Like we need, but they're not very difficult. Like we need sig hash no input, and we need some pool construction, either something similar to coin pool we did, or Jeremy Rubin's thing. What is it? OpCSV. Right now, Lightning currently can facilitate, I think, about 7 million users a month. That's my estimate. Based on that, if one person does one transaction on chain a month, then like Bitcoin blocks are still limited. I think I computed about 7 million. So the only way to break that scaling barrier is to, well, I see, apart from increasing the block size, of course, is to use joint UTXO ownership. Like when one UTXO and one transaction basically belongs to hundreds of people. So basically, AJ's idea is to build banks on one UTXO. One UTXO is a bank of 5,000 people or 50,000 people. That's why you can scale it much beyond. That's a pretty promising approach. It's very important for now to stay honest and fair in judgments, and like not building a bank today and bet on a soft fork, because that's a terrible conflict of interest.
Yeah. And so this would require any prev out, right?
Some alternative of those kinds. So they're not very difficult soft forks. They're not like crappy tailored to this particular use case. They're pretty general, but yeah, we'll need that.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, I see. I'm just checking it now. I actually didn't see this. Funnily enough, I I hadn't caught this discussion. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because it's like this idea of how do you bring this to the masses, because not literally every person can run a Lightning node and do everything for themselves, because we're literally going to run out of chain space for them.
Yeah.
So at some point you're going to have to scale beyond that. And I've seen some approaches, like for example, I've seen BTC Pay Server guys. I think it was Dennis Ryman who was working on this idea of, I think he called it LN Bank as well. And this idea was like, do you have a BTC Pay server that can have multiple users onboarded to it and use that as like a kind of a bank? And I guess even now, Blue Wallet has the LND hub, which is like a thin wrapper for LND. And then same kind of idea, you can have your one Lightning node, but then onboard all these people onto that. But then I guess what we're talking about here with this idea of using more advanced techniques is actually doing it in like a more, I guess, protocol based way, as opposed to pushing it up a layer into the software kind of applications that we use on Lightning, right?
Well, it doesn't matter really at which layer we do this. I just think this protocol way is more sovereign, because end users still will be able to do whatever with their funds in the bank. I'm not sure, like I'm not familiar with those approaches, but all the software approaches are probably at least a bit custodial. So yeah. So that's the difference.
Oh, they are, absolutely, yeah. So, but it's more, I guess the idea is it's kind of like community custodial, but yeah, certainly I think this approach is more like a long-term proper scaling up way. So I guess the challenge in these cases where let's say this thing goes huge and someday down the line, not enough people, or basically multiple people would have to have claim, like to a UTXO on chain, and then people would have to sort of, if they had to like split out or go to a different factory or some channel factory or channel grouping, I guess that is that's kind of what this idea is getting at, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I can't even believe there is like at this point so many ideas, and we just need building them. People keep asking me what's the bottleneck in Bitcoin, and last year I just realized it's developers, it's the efforts we can put. Like there is enough funding. I'm pretty sure we can onboard like 10 more people and find funding for them, but there is just no good people who are willing to do this. I don't understand. Now I'm starting to really appreciate the chain code efforts, what Brink will do, like that kind of stuff. Like and I mean, Blockstream started doing that even before me and HL. Well, HL was a contributor before Blockstream, I think, just a bit. I was absolutely not, and yeah, that's how I came into this space, and yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I wonder how. So I think, like as most things in the space, it's all indexed to number go up, right? Like as the price runs up, then you see a lot more interest, you see more, developers, you see more funding, more mining, everything, right? So I guess, maybe later this year we'll start to see a new crop of people who come in because, they see the number go up and then they start thinking and they start researching and maybe they start developing.
Well, it should work this way. I'm not sure it will. Well, like I cannot guarantee this because it all depends on those like sponsors or people who are willing to fund. Because right now it's pretty like not structured. That's totally good. Like I'm always saying that Bitcoin has a good precedent of this like open source funding from the industry, but the scaling part is unclear yet. Like we'll find out. There might be some lag. Like Bitcoin went up 5 times. Did we see more funding or more developers? I think not yet. So we'll see. This year is yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's on a bit of a lag then. So, Bitcoin runs to whatever, some crazy number, who knows? And then, 6 months later is actually when like the development funding comes or something like that.
Yeah, we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else you're interested in or anything else you're looking at?
Well, we just like for last month we were focusing on launching the label thing. There is like a legal part when we're trying to prepare some like contracts which will be like suit the industry clients as much as possible, while like to maintain the best relationship. Trying to see what our priorities should be. This actually started as a way to what is it, for self growth, because I was sitting with Antoine. He visited me here. Like I think I'm in Ukraine now, and this is one of the few free places in Europe where like there is no lockdown and all that. And so yeah, so I was thinking how I should like grow further, because yeah, I am a core developer, and I think I'm getting more productive every year, but I also wanted to have some other direction. I was thinking of academia, but universities are so bad now. Like I don't like the most brilliant people in the universities have to spend half of their time on teaching some classes they're not interested in because they're forced to, or like doing bureaucratic stuff. So and that's like, yeah, it's super underpaid and all that. Starting businesses.
So yeah, you can work on what you actually enjoy.
Yeah. Starting businesses is a bit early. That's our vision, because we think we need to take time and make core protocols strong enough and like help Bitcoin scale and all that. And if you start a business at this point, it will take all our time and we will not be able to focus on core. I'm like, well, unless we manage to raise a lot of funds and then hire other core developers. So this consulting effort was a way to self-grow initially, like try this new thing, use our knowledge. I built like exchanges and wallets previously in Ukraine. Antoine has some other background I'm not sure he wants me to talk about.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so this for me at least, this was started as a self-growth idea, and then I realized that diversifying funding would be good, because yeah, grants are cool, but I don't know, what if they disappear, or what if number goes down? So we need this like different source of income, which is like based on like the actual needs on somebody and not just goodwill. And and secondly, yeah, it seems like industry would use some help, like integrating Lightning, security, new protocols. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. I'm pretty sure our expertise would be useful. And the idea is that we can focus on that for, I don't know, for a month, like cumulatively, or like a week a month,
mm-hmm.
and then spend all the rest of the time on core development.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we were focusing on over the last couple of weeks.
Cool. And speaking of core development, are there any updates on Erle?
Yes, people started looking at it very closely now, because last year we were busy with building like some requirements, some like
the preconditions, right?
Not sexy, but like the work which has to be done before doing it. And now, yeah, we started looking at it. I just got a lot of help in how to shape it better. I'm finishing shaping it better like today, tomorrow, and then I think the work will be pretty active. Like we're gonna merge. So there is this mini sketch project, which is another requirement for early. I think that will be merged very soon, I think. Well, I hate talking about time now because
yeah, because you never know.
But yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I haven't given up, like, for sure. I'm pretty bullish on this one too. It just, yeah, all of us, like, again, I'm saying you developers, like smart people, are probably the biggest bottleneck here now, because there is like hundreds of brilliant people in the repo, but the amount of work has to be done is more than that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I guess just turning to Bitcoin more broadly, what are you excited about over this coming year? Is there anything in particular you want to see, or anything that you, kind of looking forward to?
It's pretty cool. It's getting more mainstream. I'm afraid it's growing too fast. Like earlier, when like in 2018, I heard from more experienced developers that you cannot like it grows too fast when it was hitting 20. I didn't understand that. Now I do. Like again, if the industry cannot keep up with the funding and with all this stuff, number go up. I think it might be scary. Like, for example, when we hit, I don't know, 200,000, but the scaling is not solved, there will be like hundreds of dollars in fees per transaction. I mean, assuming the use is like as of today. If nobody integrates Lightning, or like it's a very limited integration. Yeah, I see a lot of work to keep up with the number go up. Because there is a clear demand. There is like, yes, we need to support the growth. We need to maintain the infrastructure. We need to keep scaling. We need to keep the security and face the I don't know, closer attention of the governments to this thing. So yeah, that's what I see for the future.
Yeah. Are there any areas that where are the kind of areas that you think most need help from a, let's say, security perspective?
Well, I'm very happy to see the new multisig efforts, because it's still largely not usable. And I think the Spectre thing is pretty cool. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Spectre. I've interviewed Stepan Snichurev and Ben Kaufman on the show.
Yeah.
And I often shill Spectre, so I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think the biggest shame is not having a use for multisig. Well, hopefully that project is getting good. Then the what is it? Nunchuck.
Yep.
Is something similar, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that one, I'm just happy people building software for secure use of Bitcoin. I think on the core part we're doing pretty well. Like I think the security part was our priority for the last couple of years. So that should be fine. The software needs to keep up. Like the light clients, as I said, need to keep up with the I don't know how many users they have, because it's not experimental anymore. A lot of people use mobile Lightning, and you cannot just say in the repo that your software is experimental. Well, I mean, I know they're open source developers and they have no choice, but yeah, there should be more attention to that stuff.
Yeah, I see. It's a professionalization of some of the software and things that everyone is using, I guess.
Again, I'm not blaming the open source developers, but yeah, maybe that's something industry should consider, that 5x number go up is not like, doesn't come for free.
Yeah, of course, and I think it'll take maybe some listeners out there who are interested in funding development work, or maybe listeners out there who have maybe they're working in a job that's not Bitcoin related, and then they can start working in a Bitcoin job. Maybe that's part of the answer there.
I will be very happy if this is the outcome of this podcast.
Well, I don't think it's a one podcast thing. I think it's more just like an overall focus, and not just people listening to my show, but just the discussion, the conversation, like what people are saying on Twitter, the mailing list, and whatever, everything, IRC, etc. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. I think that's probably a good spot to finish up here. Gleb, where can listeners find you online?
So my Twitter username is FFSTLS, and or you just search for my name, and our website, the label is thelab31.xyz. It's like the lead language,
Hackerman language. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Gleb, for joining me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Subscribe to the show using a podcatcher application. Search Stefan Livera Podcast, and you can find my website and show notes at stefanlivera.com/255. See you in the Citadels.